So these are the pattern pieces that I'll be using for these pants. You can make your own set of patterns by following my wide leg leather pants tutorial, and the link for that is in the description box. The pattern pieces that I'll be using are the waistband, the zipper fly, the side pockets, and then the front and back leg pieces, as well as the cargo pockets, which is made up of the pocket itself and the flap that opens and closes the pocket. In terms of fabric, I'll be using this king size satin bed sheet set that I got from Amazon, and the link for it is in the description box. I traced the patterns onto the bed sheet, and then I added 3/8 seam allowance around all of the pattern pieces. I also put some fray stopper on top of the seam allowance lines because I just knew that once I started cutting this fabric, it was gonna start fraying. I serged all around the edge of the fly facing, and then I folded my fly shield in half vertically, and after that I serged along the edge opposite of the fold. I measured and made a mark 1/4 of an inch to the left of the edge of the zipper, and then once I made this mark, I extended the mark all along the full length of the zipper. Then I took my fly shield with the right sides facing up, and I lined up the edge of the zipper along the serged edge of the fly shield, and then I sewed a straight stitch right along the vertical line that I drew on the zipper. I do have a detailed tutorial on how to install a zipper, and I honestly think that in order to avoid making a mistake, you should watch that first. So we'll finish installing the full zipper fly later on. So these are my 2 waistband pieces, and I added interfacing to them to give them more support, but depending on the type of fabric you're working with, you might not need interfacing. I took my 2 waistband pieces and I sandwiched them on top of each other with right sides facing. Then after that, I straight stitched along the seam allowance line at the top of the waistband. And then I cut some slashes all along the curve of the waistband to make it more flexible. And I cut as close as I could to the line of the stitches, but I made sure not to cut through the actual stitches themselves. And then after that, I opened up the waistband by separating the 2 layers, and then I separated the slashes and flattened them down with an iron, and it looks something like this. And then after that, I folded the 2 layers of the waistband so that the wrong sides were touching, and then I pressed the waistband down to keep it flat and make it easier to stitch later on. I serged along all the edge of my pocket squares. And for the pocket flaps, I folded each pattern in half horizontally, and then I serged both side edges. Then I turned the pocket flap right side out, and then I did a straight top stitch about 1/16 of an inch in from the edge of all around the pattern. I repeated the same steps for all of the flaps, and this is how they came out. I folded all edges of the pocket square along the seam allowance. And then I repeated this with all of the pocket squares, and this is how they came out. I took my back pants leg pattern and I ended up measuring and making a mark 3 inches down from the center of the seam allowance waistline. I rotated the pocket flap so that the top edge is now at the bottom, and then I lined up the edge of the pocket flap on top of the previous mark I made, and then I pinned the flap in place and did a straight stitch along the seam allowance line. And this is how the first row of stitches came out. And then I top stitched a straight line 1/4 of an inch down from the edge to hide the raw edge that's under the flap. And this is how the top stitches came out, and I repeated the previous steps on the other pant leg. Then I took my pocket square and I lined it up right under my flap, pinned it down, And then I did a top stitch all along the sides and the bottom edge. I repeated the same steps with both of my back pockets, and this is what they look like. I took one of my front leg patterns and I turned it right side facing up. I checked to make sure that I was using the correct pocket piece by folding it in half and putting it under the front leg pattern to make sure that the curve of the front pattern piece matched the curve of the pocket piece, and that the right side of the fabric was showing in the area above the curve of the pocket. With the right sides facing, I lined up the curves of the pocket and the curve of the pant leg, and then I did a straight stitch on the seam allowance line all along the curve. It looked something like this when I finished, and the next thing I did was I cut slashes all along the curve to allow for more flexibility. And then I folded the pocket over to be underneath the pant leg, and then I gently ran my hands along the curve to make sure it was flattened out. Then I top stitched about 1/16 of an inch away from the edge of the curve, and it looked something like this. I turned the front pant leg over with the wrong side facing up, and then I folded the pocket in half so that the side seams of the wrong side of the pocket were stacked on top of each other. Then I did a straight stitch along the seam allowance line under the top edge of the pocket. After that, I turned the pocket inside out, and then I top stitched 1/16 of an inch up from the bottom edge of the pocket, and it looks something like this. I repeated the same steps on the other pant leg, and this is what it's giving, honey. If you're loving this video so far, go ahead and give it a big old thumbs up. And if you haven't already, go ahead and also hit that subscribe button, because I've got some really amazing sewing tutorials on this channel. And trust me, you do not want to miss out on the fun. So go ahead and check out my other videos, but do that after you finish watching this video. All right, I'll let you get back to it. I took one of my front pant leg patterns and I laid it flat with the right side facing up. Then I took one of my back leg pant patterns and with the wrong side facing up. And then I sandwiched it on top of the front leg pattern so that the right sides were facing. And then I pinned all of the layers in place. And I did a straight stitch along the seam allowance line. And this is how it came out. I repeated the same steps with my other two pant leg patterns. And after that, I serged the raw edges for a clean finish. Following the same steps that I showed you earlier, I installed all 4 of my cargo pockets. And in case you're wondering, the first flap is 14 inches down from my waistline, and then the second flap is 11.5 inches down from the first flap. And this is how the pockets came out. I attached the fly facing to the front of the right pant leg. Then I sandwiched the front pattern pieces on top of each other with right sides facing, and I stitched halfway up the crotch along the seam allowance line. From there, I stitched my left front pant leg onto the zipper that's connected to the fly shield. Then I slightly overlapped my right front pant leg on top of the left front leg, pinned it down, and then I flipped the fabric with wrong side up. I know that these steps may be a little confusing, but don't you worry because I have a separate detailed tutorial on how to install a zipper fly, so definitely go and check out the link in the description box. And then after that, I flipped the fabric to the right side and I top stitched a slightly curved line from the bottom of the zipper tape up to the waistline on the right pant leg. Okay, so I double folded the bottom edge of the panel and hemmed it with a straight stitch, and this is how the hem came out. Then I sandwiched the two back pant legs on top of each other with right sides facing. And I stitched the crotch from top to bottom along the seam allowance line. I lined up the front and back crotch with right sides facing, so the pants should still be wrong side out. And then I straight stitched the inner legs along the seam allowance line. And it looked like this. And I serged the raw edges along the inner leg and the outer legs too. With my pants still wrong side out, I lined up the middle of my waistband to the center back seam of my pants. Then I pinned the top edge of the waistband to the top edge of the pants on both sides of the center mark, all along the waistband. Okay, hold on one second. So I had to fold my fly shield so that it could line up with the edge of the waistband because honestly, I traced the wrong waistband pattern, which is actually for pants without a zipper. But usually the waistband is supposed to extend all the way to the edge of the unfolded fly shield. So if you want to see how it should actually be done when you have enough waistband fabric to cover the fly shield, then check out my leather pants tutorial. The link for that is in the description box. After that, I straight stitched all along the seam allowance line on the waistband, making sure to sew through the two layers, and this is what it looked like. And here I'm unfolding the waistband so that you can see how it's starting to come along. To close up the waistband, I first folded over the side edge of the waistband along the seam allowance line, and then I folded over the top edge of the waistband along the seam allowance line. And then I folded the waistband in half. And pinned it down like so. So I'll just repeat those steps for closing up the waistband again. So I just folded the side edge along the seam allowance line, and then I folded the top edge along the seam allowance line, and then I folded the entire waistband in half and just tucked everything under to make sure it was in place. After that, I stitched a straight line about 1/16 of an inch up from the bottom edge of the waistband. And this is how my waistband turned out. The final thing that I did after I installed my waistband was I installed a buttonhole as well as a button, and I did that offline, but if you guys want a tutorial on how to do that, just leave a comment and let me know. But the moment that you're waiting for, here are the final pants. If you're still watching this video, go ahead and leave a comment with yes exclamation point. And if you are interested in this denim corset that I'm wearing here, I do have a full tutorial on it. The link for that is below in the description box. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.